Hello students, my name is Deepa Shirsat and I'm working as an assistant professor in SNDT College of Arts, Churchgate, Mumbai. Today I will discuss Unit 3 from the paper Classical Sociological Tradition, and this unit is dedicated to the contribution of a very renowned sociologist, Emile Durkheim. The principal frame of reference of modern sociology was established, among others, by Emile Durkheim. It became one of the profound influences on the development of modern sociological theory, particularly by the turn of 18th century through the works of Emile Durkheim, Charles Cooley, Thomas, and Pareto. It was only in the second quarter of the 20th century, under the influence of cultural anthropology, that this approach achieved a definite status in sociology. Emile Durkheim was born at Épinal, Lorraine, in France, in the year 1858. He was of Jewish parentage and his father was a priest by profession. Young Emile was deeply influenced by the religious teachings of Judaism and his observations about the struggle of the Jews to hold together despite persecution of centuries. This had a lasting impression on his mind and on his idea of group solidarity. After graduating from his higher studies at École, famous institution of France, he went to Germany and studied economics, folklore, and cultural anthropology. When he returned to France, subsequently he was appointed professor at the University of Bordeaux and taught sociology there for 15 years. Incidentally, this was first university in France to have started a course in sociology. In 1902, he joined the renowned University of Sorbonne in Paris, and in 1906, he became a full-fledged professor. In the meantime, he had founded the journal Année Sociologienne in 1896, and for many years, he continued to contribute articles of sociological significance and interest to the journal. For quite some years, this journal was the leading journal publishing material on sociological thought and research in France. He had led a normal married life with a devoted wife. He had a son on whom he had primed hopes. His son was killed in the First World War. This tragedy gave him a blow and he passed away soon after, that is, in 1917. Durkheim lived in a turbulent period in the history of France-Prussian War. The church had lost its impact and had ceased to guide and bind people together. Industrialization had also added to the instability as it had shaken the old economic order. Durkheim was impressed by the remarkable progress made by European countries in the 19th century in the material aspects of life. He welcomed science and industry that had made this possible. But he realized that the coming of an industrial society was not unmixed blessing. The unsettled condition brought about by industrialism needed, according to him, urgent and careful attention. The First World War came as a great blow to France and to Durkheim, who lost many of his students, friends, and colleagues in the battle. In 1915, he lost his son André due to wounds received during the battle. This loss he could not bear, and in 1917, at the age of 59, Durkheim breathed his last. Now we will see the influence of other French, British, and German thinkers on the thoughts of Emile Durkheim. The 19th century, there was no field of sociology in France. There was no school or even professor of sociology. There were a few thinkers who were dealing with ideas that were in one way or another sociological, but there was no specific discipline of sociology. Thus, Durkheim was in a dilemma to create for sociology a separate and identifiable status. He emphasized on empirical research in sociology to make it different from philosophy. Emile Durkheim's theoretical orientation, unlike that of many other major sociological thinkers, contains clear-cut conceptions. He was deeply concerned with the impact of the large-scale structures of society on the thoughts and actions of individuals. Durkheim began to publish articles, first on the German academic life and then critical articles on various kinds of scholarship, thereby gaining considerable recognition from the French Academy. In 1887, he was appointed as the faculty of the University of Bordeaux, where the first course in social science in all of France was created for him to teach. Durkheim, along with Karl Marx and Max Weber, must be credited with founding the modern phase of sociological theory. It began with his first book, Division of Labor, submitted as his French doctoral thesis at the Sorbonne, along with his Latin doctoral thesis on Montaigne in 1895. Durkheim established a broad framework for analyzing social system that has remained central to sociology and anthropology to the present day. The focus of his work was on the nature of the social system and the relation of that system to the personality of the individual. To a great extent, sociology is the product of the synthesis of two elements, and these are empiricism and utilitarianism of Spencer and German idealism of Hegel and others. 2 years after his monumental work on the division of labor, he published his second major study, The Rules of Sociological Method, completing his Bordeaux's trilogy in 1897 with his incompatible suicide. 4 years later, and as everyone was anticipating, Durkheim was called to the Sorbonne, Paris's great university and headquarters of the French intelligentsia. The chair created for him in 1902 was in sociology and education, and through education was soon dropped. Durkheim remained interested in the application of sociology to the field of education throughout his career. Durkheim established sociology as a field of interest to a wider public, set up a scholarly journal entirely devoted to the new discipline, and became a source of inspiration for an extraordinary, gifted group of young scholars, all devoted to the Durkheim and approach of sociology. Although Durkheim was considerably affected by both German and British social thought, his ideas were rooted in French intellectual history. His major roots were in the tradition of the Enlightenment, especially in the work of Rousseau and Montesquieu. Durkheim had an intimate knowledge of socialist literature, including the works of Karl Marx. But he remained throughout his life opposed to socialism, particularly disliked its violent nature and its class character. In opposition to a conception of society and social change based on classes and class conflict, Durkheim put forward a theory based on organic solidarity, which ignored the implications of class cleavages. Change was good only if it benefited society as a whole, according to Durkheim. Now we will see the influences of Saint-Simon and Auguste Comte's ideas. Durkheim's predecessors as well as his contemporaries also commented or opined on the impact of science, technology, and industrialism. Durkheim was influenced by their thoughts and views. Among these scholars were Saint-Simon, Auguste Comte, Herbert Spencer, Karl Marx, etc., to mention only a few prominent names. Durkheim's thoughts about society and social life were thus shaped by the circumstances in which he lived, as also by the thoughts and views of these scholars. From Saint-Simon, Durkheim adopted the view on division of labor and on the need for moral imperatives to maintain solidarity and social order. From Auguste Comte, he picked up the idea of organicism, his emphasis on the importance of group in determining human conduct, and his stress on the study of social phenomena in an objective and scientific manner. Durkheim agreed with Spencer that society was like an organism and that modern societies had evolved from simple to complex stages. But he opposed vehemently Spencer's views on individualism. Influenced by Comte, organicism, and a long tradition of French social thought, Durkheim's early work was heavily infused with organismic terminology. In conceiving of society as a reality sui generis, Durkheim gave analytical priority to the social whole, viewed system parts as fulfilling basic functions, needs or requisites of that whole. He used the term functional needs in his concept utilization of normal and pathological states. Social systems have certain functional needs which must be fulfilled in order to avoid abnormal states, he asserted. To understand the sociology of Emile Durkheim, one must examine his relation to socialist thought and to the socialist movement of his time. Apparently, Durkheim had begun to concern himself with the problems of socialism as early as in 1883. But as he progressed with his various studies on division of labor, suicide, family and religion, his interest shifted in 1895 and he again took up the study of socialism. In his early critical examination of Marx's theories, Durkheim made an effort to construct a model of society essentially antithetical to that of Marx. As in the case of Comte, Durkheim was proposing a positive constructive philosophy to counteract the negative critical philosophy of the socialists. Social stratification, class cleavages, problem of power and political conflict play no significant part in Durkheim's positive polity. Like Saint Simon, Durkheim also believed that moral ideas were an integral part of a society. Both thinkers considered society as above all a community of ideas. Both believed that similar positive moral ideas can bind and unite men into society. Simon considered his major task as determining the kind of moral system that would bind together the social order, classes, strata, and occupational groups of contemporary France. Like Saint Simon, he viewed the role of theory as essentially positive and constructive, and shared with the founder of positive philosophy a certain dislike for the negative critical outlook of the philosophies and the revolutionaries. Durkheim wholeheartedly agreed that contemporary philosophy must be constructive and organizational, not critical and revolutionary. Saint Simon's conception of society as proclaimed in his Physiological Sociale led to Durkheim's own positivistic and functional view. This inspired the organismic analogies and metaphors which we find throughout Durkheim's work. Durkheim's fundamental premise that society is not a simple aggregate of individuals, but a really sui generis, had already been defined by Saint Simon. Durkheim's evolutionary conception of society was anticipated in Saint Simon's law of progress. A dominant theme in Durkheim's treatment of the individual was that men are the instruments rather than the authors of this law. For both thinkers, men should submit to social laws. At least man can hope to discover the direction of these laws and adjust to them with the least pen. In conclusion, we can say that Durkheim's thoughts that a scientific study of society was the first major step that would help achieve this end. But which aspects of society should a sociologist study? Durkheim did not want any vagueness in this matter, and he set out the proper field of sociology in right earnest. Now, we will see Durkheim's concerns with the order and disintegration of society. It is Durkheim who clearly established the logic of the functional approach to the study of social phenomena, although functional explanations played a major part in the works of both Comte and Spencer. Durkheim separated functional analysis from two other analytical procedures. These are the quest for historical organism and causes, the probing of individual purposes and motives is the second one. The first is historical and the second is psychological. The quest for origins and historical causes, however, was to Durkheim an essential and legitimate part of the sociological phenomenon, and that could be fully explained by both historical and functional analysis. The latter would reveal whether a particular item, a custom, a value or a norm had certain consequences for the working of social system or its component parts. The concept of function played a key role in all of Durkheim's work. In The Division of Labor, his very important work, his prime objective was to know what social needs it satisfies. In the elementary forms of religious life, Durkheim demonstrated what social functions, religious cults, rites, beliefs performed for the society. Even in his discussion of deviance and criminality, Durkheim saw crime as normal in terms of its occurrence and as serving positive social functions. No society could enforce total conformity to its injunctions, he explained. Deviance from the community by arousing collective sentiments against the violation of social norms. Hence, crime serves an unanticipated function of strengthening normative consensus in the common will. Now, Durkheim's concern with social solidarity and disintegration of society is also very significant. The theories relating to social solidarity were developed in his first book, The Division of Labor in Society, in 1893. However, before we discuss the forms of solidarity, a few concepts have to be explained. Let us first try to understand a very important concept, and that is collective conscience. Collective conscience can be defined in terms of the sum total of beliefs and sentiments common to the average members of society and forming a system in its own right. This collective conscience, a distinct reality which persists through time and unites generation, is a product of human similarities among individuals in society and is most pronounced when the similarities are more. In primitive societies, such similarities were the maximum. For example, similar occupation, religion, and environment. And therefore, collective conscience was most powerful. To maintain that conscience, the laws are more severe, which were concerned with violation of customs. That means, wherever collective conscience is the strongest, punishment for the breaking up of any rule or norm of the society is also very severe or rigid. Durkheim also distinguished between two types of law. These are repressive and restitutive laws. The former is concerned with punishment and severely punishes any breach of social laws. The violation is considered a crime against collective conscience, and then punishment becomes harsh. The restitutive law, on the other hand, is cooperative, and its only aim is to restore things in order when a misdeed has been committed. Durkheim lived in France at a time when there was chaos and instability for a variety of reasons. Science and industry had made tremendous progress. There was intense economic activity, traditional religion had lost its old vigor and power, there was political instability, and more importantly, there was rise of individualism and rationalism on one hand, and Marxism and call for revolution on the other hand. These events were threatening social order and social coherence. Against the background, Durkheim started thinking very seriously about the problem of social solidarity, consensus, and anomie. Although Durkheim wanted the prevalent situation to change, he did not want to rush with suggestions for change and reforms. He wanted to make a thorough study of the situation. The most characteristic features of the situation he found on thoughtful observations was the few kind of division of labor in the industrial societies of the West in general and the social differentiation it had brought about. He was interested in the social solidarity of this industrial society. He was so much taken up by this problem that he selected for his doctoral thesis the subject of division of labor. This thesis was published in a book form in 1893. Division of labor, according to Durkheim, is a historically necessary process that brings with it an ever higher form of solidarity. The development of science and industry, bringing about increasing interdependence among individuals and groups within society as a whole, could serve as the objective basis of a new and higher solidarity. Inspired by Saint-Simon, Durkheim attempted to show that the division of labor creates in two or more persons a feeling of solidarity. This does not mean that there was no solidarity in society in industrial societies. In fact, society was more homogeneous, where everyone was alike, and therefore there prevailed a strong sense of solidarity in pre-industrial societies. But with passage of time, with economic development and diversification of occupations, there was greater differentiation of functions, increasing heterogeneity and complexity of society. The result was that the original solidarity was undermined and eventually lost. But this does not mean that solidarity was lost forever. Durkheim asserted that in this process of social evolution, a new and a higher type of social solidarity was generated by the division of labor. This is the major thesis Durkheim developed, proceeding to give two types of solidarity: mechanical solidarity and organic solidarity. And these are the characteristics of different types of society. Now, let us see what Durkheim has to say about increasing division of labor in a capitalist society. Durkheim believed that all societies must have social coherence and social solidarity. Since all societies were not alike, the type of solidarity in them would also be different. He was a student of cultural anthropology and was familiar with primitive societies and their social organization. Although his main concern was with the modern industrial societies and the social solidarity prevalent there, he wanted to compare them with primitive and traditional societies. The kind of solidarity prevalent there would also undergo change. Durkheim's emphasis on the moral nature of social relationships appear in all his works. In Division of Labor also, he came out with the idea that the moral life of man in society is a unique subject for investigation, which sociologists must undertake to study. He claimed that division of labor is a moral phenomenon rather than an economic one. He focused on the moral, legal, and political problems of societies as they evolve from simple to modern industrial societies. Earlier, Comte had argued that division of labor would create increased conflicts as individuals and groups would protect their own interests. Spencer, on the other hand, had suggested that the division of labor would bring greater interdependence, which would make modern industrial societies less vulnerable to disintegration than simple societies. Durkheim saw changes from simple to complex. Division of labor also increases as new roles are required. Thus, there is an increasing differentiation of units and groupings. In this process, the uniformity of beliefs and moral ideas start decreasing, and yet the society does not disintegrate. This is because a new moral order develops to supplement to the weakening influences of common values. In effect, Durkheim suggested that a new form of social solidarity or a new form of morality emerges and prevents a society from collapsing. This amounts to saying that as the nature of the moral consensus changes, there is a corresponding change in the nature of society. Now, let us try to understand what mechanical and organic solidarity mean. By distinguishing two types of solidarity, Durkheim tried to demonstrate the difference between value consensus and structural integration in a given society. Mechanical solidarity prevails where individual differences are minimized and the members of the society are much alike in their devotion to the common weal. Organic solidarity, in contrast, develops out of differences rather than likenesses between individuals. It is the product of division of labor. Comparing archaic and advanced societies, Durkheim finds the former to be characterized by mechanical and the latter by organic solidarity. This distinction is similar to Spencer's conception from homogeneity. But evolution is not the focal point of Durkheim's work. The contrast between the two types of society, mechanical and organic, serves as a background for the study of collective phenomena. In societies where solidarity is mechanized, members share strong sense of collective conscience. Durkheim defined collective conscience as the sum total of beliefs and sentiments common to the average of the members of society, forming a system in its own right. Organic solidarity, on the other hand, emerges with the growth of division of labor. It implies dissimilarities among members of the society and brings about increasing interdependence among them. As organic solidarity increases, the significance of collective conscience lessens. Advanced societies, more and more marked by organic solidarity, represent moral progress, stressing the higher values of equality, liberty, fraternity, and justice. Social constraints, however, continue to play a major role in these societies. This has been one of Durkheim's major contributions. According to Durkheim, primitive societies were characterized by mechanical solidarity. In primitive society, there is resemblance between members because the society is simple. There is a simple division of labor and the members of the society could be substituted one for the other. In other words, they are not much differentiated. Further, they have the same common sentiments, share the same values, and hold the same things sacred. These are strong social bonds that bind people together. Durkheim's interest in the individual-group relationship, to which a reference was made earlier, is revealed in this analysis. Durkheim felt that there were two kinds of interests so far as an individual was concerned. He had his own interest about which he was conscious, and there was also the consciousness of the interest of the group in his mind. In the primitive societies, it was the interest of the group in his mind. In the primitive society, the interest of the entire group matter to everyone. This would help in the society to maintain solidarity with ease, and the group would function in such a way that group solidarity would not be affected. Durkheim had made the point with an example from primitive society, namely the reaction of the primitive society to crime and its notion of punishment. Now, let us try to study it in brief manner. Durkheim said that violation of any social norm in a primitive society would be severely punished. But why was it so? It was so because the offense was regarded as an offense against the whole group and its common sentiments of what was just and right. As Setline-Gass tried to explain it, anything that violates common conscience or sentiments threatens the solidarity of the group. Therefore, by retaliating severely to the crime committed by any member of that group, ensure its own unity and solidarity. The same could be said about the religious practices and rituals performed in primitive societies. Not a single step in the elaborated rituals would be allowed to lapse, because any lapse would offend the sense of sacredness cherished by the whole group. A society characterized by mechanical solidarity is unified because all people do the same kind of activities and have similar responsibilities. In contrast, a society characterized by organic solidarity is held together by the differences among people, as everyone is occupied in different types of jobs. Because people in modern society perform a relatively narrower range of tasks, they need many other people in order to survive today's society. For example, we all need grocers, laundriers, bakers, teachers, police officers, drivers, and so on. All of these provide a kind of services needed by the other. Modern society, in Durkheim's view, is thus held together by the specialization of people and the need for the service of many others. For example, a salesman required is for customers' satisfaction. A teacher needs the attention of students. Buses require passengers, while the program officer need presence of the audience. Durkheim was also concerned with the specialization of group institutions and structures apart from individuals, and that structures a very important and a significant part for the individuals. Durkheim suggested that in a society characterized by mechanical solidarity, people have more consensus, homogeneity, love and affection. But at the same time, there is strong competition and inter-rivalry between and among the members. As everyone is engaged in the same task, only the perfect can survive. But in modern societies, people have more interdependence, as everyone has to depend on the other for survival, since everyone does a specialized but different task. A society characterized by organic solidarity has a specialization, division of labor, and individualism. In such type of society, people are held together by the interdependence of their functions rather than by the homogeneity of elements. Durkheim also says that such society has weak collective conscience and restitutive law. Organic solidarity, as Durkheim envisioned it, develops out of differences rather than likenesses, and it is a product of the division of labor. In such a society, individuals are no longer similar but different, and then moral and mental unity also goes away. Those people are interdependent on each other, there is not much intense competition or rivalry, and among them there is always a cooperation and interdependence of functions. In primitive societies, the group norms are considered as supreme. The individuals surrender themselves to the group to which they belong. There is no encouragement to individualism. Durkheim mentions that in such a group, collective thinking dominates individual judgment and ability. There is no encouragement to individual actions or consciousness. Collective decisions become more powerful than individual judgments. At the moment, our individuality is nil, while in modern society, organic solidarity, that is functional interdependence, predominates. Just as in a physical organism, the various parts are different, yet they work together to maintain the organism. For example, the different body parts like heart, liver, brain, etc. in the human body perform specialized function and keep the body alive. Similarly, in industrial society, occupational roles are specialized and different, yet they function together to maintain the social unit. For Durkheim, interdependence arising from differentiation and specialization leads to more solidarity. In order to produce goods and services more efficiently, members of industrial societies specialize in particular roles, and specialization requires cooperation. For example, a large range of specialists are required to design, manufacture, and market a particular product. Their cooperation is the basis of success in business. Since interdependence is increased in modern society, collective conscience is decreased. There is more individual thinking and awareness in a modern society. Similarly, occupations of different economies are also different in a modern society. In such a society, still integration exists, but that is because of imposition of common law and also due to specialization and differentiation of labor. In such a case, everyone is dependent on the other for survival, since each one is engaged only in a limited field of job, which is related to the other. Through this interdependence, group members come together to each other and establish relationships. Such solidarity or relationships are based on complex division of labor and specialization. Thus, mechanical solidarity is based on similarity or simple division of labor, while organic solidarity is based on differences or more complex division of labor as well as specialization. Durkheim insists that division of labor, a social phenomenon, can only be explained in terms of three social factors: the volume, the material density, which refers to the number of individuals in a particular group, and also on the type of communication and interaction within the group. That means the division of labor basically results from three factors: the size of population, that is the demographic or territorial expansion of any area or any region; secondly, the increase in the volume of any population; and thirdly, the changing nature of interaction or communication in that particular demographic group. It also means availability of material comfort. Moral intensity means the intensity of communication between individuals and their compliance with values. With the formation of cities, the development of communication and transportation, the condensation of societies multiplies intra-social relations. Thus, the growth and condensation of societies and the resulting intensity of social relationships requires a greater division of labor. As societies become more voluminous and denser, more people come in contact with each other. They compete for scarce, and there is rivalry and competition everywhere. As the struggle for survival becomes acute, social differentiation develops as a peaceful solution to the problem. When individuals learn to pursue different occupations, the chances of conflict also diminish. Each man is no longer in competition with all. Each man is in competition with only a few of his fellow who pursue the same object of job. The carpenter does not conflict with mason. The doctor need not struggle with teachers or the politicians with engineers. Each one is engaged in his job and tries to achieve perfection. Since they perform different services, they can exist without being obliged mutually to destroy one another. The division of labor is thus the result of the struggle for existence. In the modern society, where collective conscience is no more strong, the individual can enjoy a certain autonomy of judgment and actions. But a minimum level of collective conscience has to be maintained to avoid social disintegration. Now, the concept of pathological form of division of labor is also significant in Durkheim's idea of solidarity. While advancing these arguments, Durkheim felt he was describing the normal situation in any industrial society. In other words, he argued that under normal kinds of division of labor, there would be cooperation between various occupational groups and integration of society would be maintained unhampered. It is only when the division of labor was abnormal or pathological, there would be conflicts and disintegration. And it was only at the end of his analysis of division of labor in society that he became seriously concerned with the unstable and unsettling conditions. Now, Durkheim called this unstable condition as anomie, that is, normlessness. At this stage, it appears that the old norms guiding people have broken down, but new ones have not taken their place. Under these circumstances, there is a vacuum about norms. A near normless situation prevails, and this also creates uncertainty and ambiguity regarding norms in the minds of the people. This is called as anomie. So anomie is a condition in which norms become weak or they are altogether absent, and that is why an individual is directionless regarding what kind of behavior he is supposed to exhibit. When anomie takes place in any society, there is likely to be disorganization in any kind of society, and in such condition, pathological forms of division of labor are most likely to take place. And when the forms of division of labor are pathological or abnormal, they are not likely to result in solidarity. Sometimes the common sentiments and values, that is consensus, break down, and individuals become more self-centered, thereby tending to neglect collective interests. The integration of the individuals with group becomes loose and weak. Under such circumstances, conflict and strife and tensions also increase. There is disregard for norms and individuals evolve their own code of conduct. This situation is also termed anomie by Durkheim. However, as mentioned earlier, it should be clear that the two situations described here are not totally unrelated. Durkheim, however, was an optimist and had a firm belief in the organic nature of industrial society. He felt that eventually society would return to stability. But as he approached the end of his works on division of labor, his optimism was slightly shaken, and he was forced to take a more serious note of the unstable, and concern for anomy eventually found a more concrete expression when he subsequently analyzed the problem of suicide. So, after undergoing the contribution of Emil Durkheim in this chapter, in conclusion we can say that in the Durkheim's book Division of Labor, it is not the lack of rules but rather their excess that is the source of the problem. When rules become very rigid, individuals find themselves estranged and resentful because they do not have the freedom to choose their occupations. Instead, they are thrust upon the person by custom, law, and norms. So here, through this chapter, we are also acquainted with the various concepts like solidarity, the types of solidarity, and also the division of labor and how pathological forms of division of labor exist in modern industrial society.